I'm going to share with you an optimal coloring technique that I use to color my full contour zirconia restorations using the LavaPlus dyeing liquids. I'm also going to be using and demonstrating the use of the new enamel liquids that are in the LavaPlus dyeing liquid family. And that's what you see here actually with the blue lids in front of you. So I'm going to be using today A2 body shade for an A2 bridge that I'm going to color up, and that's what's in this little container here, along with a drop of the red color markers from 3M. And then in this container here, that's darker, it looked black probably in the video, but it's actually blue, is my EL enamel liquid with the blue color markers in it. That'll help indicate on my zirconia restorations where I've painted these liquids, and so you can actually see where these liquids have been applied. Without the color markers, these liquids would go on pretty much clear, and it's really kind of difficult to see where it is that you've applied these liquids. Let me just talk a little bit about the new enamel liquids from 3M here in the LavaPlus dyeing liquid family. As you can tell, they come in bottles with blue lids. This will help distinguish them from the body shades, which are in a white lid. The other thing is there's three of them. There's EB for enamel bleach, EL for enamel light, and EM for enamel medium. I personally have found that EB I've kind of been using for my bleach shades, as well as all my light shades, A1, B1, C1. The EL, I'm finding I'm using that on majority of all of my restorations, except for my light shades, and then of course the dark shades. The dark shades that I have found that I use the darker enamel, which would be the enamel medium, is on A4, B4, and C4. So pretty much all other shades that I haven't mentioned to be used with EB, or that I didn't mention to be used with EM, I end up using the EL liquids. My suggestion is, once you get your hands on these liquids, is to find you some, scrap pieces of zirconia that you have there in your laboratory, and apply, 3 or 4 coats onto your zirconia of the liquid straight. Go ahead and fire them with your other zirconia that's being sintered at the time, and get you an idea of exactly what these enamel liquids look like, and give you a much better idea of how you'll end up using them, and kind of what you would expect them to look like with your restorations that you're applying them on. I'm going to start with this 3-unit bridge that I have here. And this restoration here that I'm working with today is actually just a Jensen Imagine material. But like I say, this technique that I'm going to be demonstrating today is a technique that I use on all of my full contour zirconias that I'm working on. And so the other thing too that I suggest is that you take what I am sharing with you here and go ahead and freely modify it any way, shape, or form that may fit you and your laboratory more specifically, whether that's additional coats of application or less coats of application, diluting the liquids more, where this is an Imagine zirconia. It'll be treated with straight LavaPlus liquid straight out of the bottle. I use undiluted liquid for my Imagine restorations as well as for my LavaPlus restorations. Now, when I go to do this same technique with my Jensen XT material, I end up needing to dilute this liquid roughly, it's not quite half and half. I find that I do about 4 milliliters of liquid with about 3 milliliters of distilled water. And again, though, that can be customized off of your own individual needs as you play and experiment with it. So the other aspect that I think is very important to consider when applying these liquids is the type of brush being used. I like to use natural hair brush. I know synthetics will probably work just as fine, but what's most important, I feel, is the size of the brush. I think a number 4 or 5 size brush is really a really good size. These are roughly a number 4 size. It allows me to get just the right amount of liquid applied to my restorations without having to create a whole lot of work, but yet I still have control in the way the liquids are being applied because my brush isn't way too big and creating a whole bunch of liquid going everywhere on the restoration that I lose control of. So brush size I think is very important, and I would definitely recommend sticking with a number 4 or number 5 size brush. So with my restoration, I just take either a graphite pencil or a red margin marking pencil, and these marks that I'm going to put on here will actually burn out during the sintering process, but I'm going to actually draw on these restorations kind of a transitional line of where I want my body and enamel to transition, giving me a nice gradation effect instead of having some drastic lines like a zebra or something. So as I go around, I go one line kind of up in that incisal third area, and then I'm going to go about 1 millimeter below that and draw on another line. Let's see if I can make it so you can see a little better there. That might even be 2 millimeters, but it's going to be dependent upon how much room you actually have on your restoration as well. These are nice tall ones. So I have something like so. In between those two lines is going to be my transition area. Now I like to start with my body shades. I find that by applying my body shades first, I end up with a little bit more chroma. So if you feel that you would like to have less chroma and maybe more enamel shade, go ahead and apply your enamel shades first. The technique is the same. So where I'm using my body shades, I'm going to grab my body shade brush, and I'm going to apply 2 coats of body shade to the inside of my restorations. So I like to get down on the occlusion, and then I will apply liquid to my axial walls. So there's 1 coat on that abutted tooth, and I'm going to come around and do 1 more coat. Making sure that I get a 2nd coat down onto my occlusion. I'm going to repeat that process here for my other tooth. So now my abutted teeth that I'm treating here, this is exactly what I would do if this was just a single full contour crown. I'm going to do my 2 coats on the inside and making sure that I get 2 coats on the occlusion. Okay. Now where this is a bridge, my bridge, I'm going to actually apply 2 coats of liquid down here on the underside of the pontic where it comes in contact with the tissue. So there's 1 coat. There's 2 coats. Okay. I'm then going to flip my restoration so I'm looking at the occlusal table, and I'm going to put some body shade down through the central dissectional grooves. This will bring some extra chroma down through the occlusion. Anywhere that you feel like you need that extra chroma, go ahead and apply some body shade. And I'm going to do 3 coats of this down through my central dissectional groove and fossa pits. So there's 2 coats, and I'm going to come with my last 3rd coat. Okay. At this point I'm ready to shade up the bodies of my restoration, and I'm going to do 1 coat where I'm actually applying this liquid right up to the top line of the 2 transitional lines. So I'm going to be applying liquid into the transition zone up to the top line and pulling down to the margin. You can see about there's where I need to apply another bit of liquid to my brush. I find like I can usually do maybe 3 or 4 strokes before I need to go get more liquid. Don't be afraid of getting a lot of liquid on your brush. I sometimes will find people that I've taught this technique to, they may get a little too little liquid on their brush, and so you end up with a very light looking restoration. So if for any reason you're getting light restorations or not enough chroma, just make sure you get a little bit more liquid on your brush, and don't be afraid to apply a little heavier liquid. If you're also getting too light of a restoration, you can also apply maybe 1 or 2 more, or maybe even 3 more coats. But again, that's something that you can experiment with as you start to work with this technique. I find that what I'm showing you here is exactly what I use pretty much on all of my restorations, and it gives me a really good canvas, really good starting point to do my final restorations after they come out of the sintering oven. So this is my first coat. I'm coming around where I've applied up to the top line. I'm now going to apply a second coat, repeating that again, going up to the top line. You see where that liquid spread up through that lingual dissectional groove? That's fine. I don't freak out about stuff like that. Even interproximally, you can kind of see where the liquid's gone up into the separation or the interproximal contact areas. You're going to naturally have more chroma in those areas anyways, so I go ahead and I just let the liquid do what it wants to do in those areas, and you'll end up with a little bit more natural appearance. So I'm back where I started. I'm now going to apply 2 more coats, but this time I want my 2 more coats to be below the lower second line. So I'm going to stay down here below that lower transitional line, only in the body area. Notice on my Pontic, I'm actually overlapping where I've already applied 2 coats on the underside of the Pontic. You can go side to side if you feel that that's more comfortable for you, or you can stay going up and down if that feels better for you. Sometimes I find myself doing a combination of the 2. Okay, so there's 3 coats. Now I'm going to come back around for my 4th, and that's again staying below that lower line and just getting my 4th coat in and on the body area. You'll see areas like this sometimes right here at the margin where the margin looks white, and a lot of times you sit there and you keep trying to apply liquid hoping that it's going to start looking more red, in this case where my marker colors are applied. That's just the nature of zirconia sometimes, and so don't freak out. The margin is actually getting the same color saturation as the rest of the body. It's just where for some reason or another the pigments from the red just have not really adapted there or taken in right there. So I've never had an issue where my margins are white. They'll always end up being shaded just fine. So what I've got here, just to recap, is between these 2 lines here in my transitional area, I've got 2 coats of body, where down below, because I've been applying liquid down towards the margin, my next 2 coats are down in this body area, and so I now have a total of 4 coats in the body area, 2 coats in the transitional area. Okay, and then I've got 2 coats on the inside. Now on the pontic area, where it's touching the tissue, because I've overlapped the 2 body applications with the 2 coats that I already did down on the tissue area here, my tissue area is actually going to end up with a total of 6 coats, so a little heavier in chroma down here. I'm done with my body shade, so let's get rid of that. And now I'm going to grab my enamel liquid. In this case, it's an A2 crown, so I'm going to be using my EL, which is Enamel Light. And I'm going to just kind of flip the restoration a little bit, and this time I'm going to start down at the lower transitional line, which is down in my body area, and I'm going to apply enamel liquid but pulling up towards my cusp tips. So, and you don't have to be perfect as far as touching right at the line. It's only a guide point. So by using it as a guide, as long as you kind of stick in that area, you'll end up with, sometimes you're shorter than it, sometimes you're a little longer with it. That helps create the natural appearance of gradation from body to enamel. So we'll go around once. If you start to see you need more liquid, go ahead and grab more liquid. Okay, so there's my first coat. I'm going to repeat that process again, going down to that lower line down in the body area and pulling up towards my cusp tips. So this will give me a total of 2 coats at this point. Now, as I come around, I need to apply 2 more coats to this. But this time, I'm going to stay above the incisal line here and only apply liquid in the incisal third area, kind of up at my cusp tip, staying above that second transitional line that's in the incisal zone. And again, I might find myself doing more side-to-side motions at this, where it's a little smaller area. I may not go up and down. Coming around, now I need 1 more coat to make my 4th, and again that's just going to be up in the incisal third area above the second line. And now all that remains is my occlusion here. And so on my occlusion I'm going to apply 4 coats. And you can see I'm actually applying enamel liquid right over the top of where I've already put body shade. And keep in mind that because the body shade was applied there first, it's going to be the more dominant shade. You can see how it's starting to puddle up in my secondaries. So usually as I come across here for this last coat of enamel, I've got a little bit of liquid in my secondary, so I just kind of sweep it up and pull it back up towards the cusp tips and spread it out a little bit. So use what's there as maybe your 4th coat. And at that point, you're done and it's ready to go into the sintering furnace to be fired. So just a little recap again. I've got 2 body coats between the lines, with then a total of 4 coats in my body area. For enamel, as we flipped it over, I've got 2 enamel coats in the transitional area, giving me a total of 4 coats, 2 body, 2 enamel, with then 4 coats of enamel up in this incisal third area. I have 3 coats of body down through the central dissectional grooves, topped off with then 4 coats of enamel over the top of it in the occlusion. I've got 2 coats of body shade on the inside of my abutted teeth, and then I've got a total of pretty much 6 coats on the underside of the pontic where it's going to be touching the tissue. And that's it. Pretty simple.